Our next presenter is Mark W. Rutan. Mark Rutan currently works as an instructor for the Texas Water Utilities Association since January 2017. He has worked as a Central West Texas Regional Manager in Operations and Maintenance Specialist for the U.S. Water Corporation from 2013 to 2017. Mark Rutan, after retirement, worked as an instructor of water and wastewater operator training for the Texas Water Utilities Association from 2008 to 2013. He has over 40 years of experience in the utility industry in Texas. He worked for the city of Stanford for 26 years as Utilities Director and Director of Public Works from 1982 until he retired in May 2008. Mr. Rutan continued his career in the utility industry by working as an instructor for the Texas Water Utilities Association, educating water and wastewater operators across Texas. Mark Rutan has been involved with Homeland Security to provide terrorism training for water and wastewater operators. Mr. Rutan was brought up in the utility industry, working with his family managing water and wastewater systems and helping on the family farm. Please welcome Mark Rutan.
Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. Like I said, my name is Mark Rutan. I'm the lead instructor for the Texas Water Utilities Association, and probably have taught many of you in water, wastewater education training classes along the way. And if I haven't gotten there yet, I probably will see you somewhere along the way. Been doing this most all of my life. Grew up in the industry, water and wastewater. I'm a fourth generation water utility and wastewater utility operator. Grew up with 13 water systems, 8 wastewater systems, and much, much more ever since then. One of the things that I have found along the way has been a real critical factor in some of my education and learning experience is utility safety. I find that sometimes small to moderate systems don't have the financial income or prowesses to meet some of the needed utility safety requirements, whereas larger utilities or private utility contract companies and those of the like can meet those individual processes, but sometimes choose not to. So I'm here today to talk to you about some of the different topics, the high spots, about some of the key things that I find critical for protecting you and keeping you safe in the water utility systems that you work within. Some of the key elements I'm going to talk about today is just basic general safety that we talk about for first aid measures, those type of things that we see, stings, bites, pricks, things that stick you, prick you. We got a lot of bugs and critters out there these days that can always cause lots of harms. I am a beekeeper. I have a very large bee apiary. Many of you probably have come across in water meters and manholes large concentrations of bees, and some of those are Africanized bees that can cause you some severe harm, and some can attack you to the point that it can cause you death. So you have to be very conscientious about some of those things out there. I'm also going to talk to you about some of the different aspects of chlorine gaseous systems and their hazards. I'm going to talk to you about some of the chemical hazards that we have, trench safety, confined space. I was teaching a class last week online for TWA, and my first day in class, we have a local city from the city of Sweetwater, where a young gentleman of 23 years of age was working in a water leak repair. Unfortunately, he was using a quit skull. Evidently, it got away from him and cut a major artery up around his neck area, and he passed away shortly thereafter. These are one of those accidents I hate to hear about because he passed away there and didn't have a chance to see what our utility work or life is all about. So we've got to take some extra precautionary measures, folks, when you're out there working. Yeah, I know, heat and the bustle of the battle of doing the jobs we do, sometimes that you take a little extended risk that maybe you shouldn't. But sometimes those of you that are senior operators, been there, done that, you sometimes step back and take a look and say, hey, we got to watch after those that are new and haven't been there, done that yet. And unfortunately, we see accidents like this of all kinds from time to time. And maybe you realize that Texas still leads the state and sometimes the nation in Texas cave-ins for trench safety and confined space deaths. How many of you still realize that Texas still leads the nation in those type of incidents? Everybody realize that? We're still, believe it or not, we're getting lots of utility workers, contractors, and those of the like, killed throughout the given years as a result of not doing adequate protection. Hopefully all of you for trench safety have a degree of shoring that you put into place, confined space with gas detection systems that you use for monitoring, and entrance and egress systems. So I'm going to talk more about these different aspects of things as we go. If you have questions or you have considerations or concerns, step up. There's a lot of you out here in the class. It may be difficult for me to pick out. We got some mics. It's in the center of the aisle, so step up there and ask away. I'll take any questions that you may have regarding to degrees of safety. Keep in mind, safety is your responsibility, folks. The first person to keep you safe is yourself, so you must stay safe. Thoughts on safety. Safety defines in the Webster Dictionary as secure from harm or danger, the absence of risk. So risk awareness. Risk awareness is the learned ability. Risk awareness is 24/7, 365 days a year. We cannot ever let our guard down and forget about risk awareness when it comes to the degrees of safety that we need to provide for. Accidents occurring outside the workplace contribute to the majority of the lost time in workplaces, believe it or not. How many of you ever had an accident before, whether it be something you stumbled, you fell, car accident, injury in life? Just about everybody in here somewhere on the way has had some type of incident or accident along the way, whether you intended it to happen or just one of those deals that just took place. Always a time for accidents. So therefore, we look at these hazards to a greater degree when we talk about hazards in the workplace. We look at mechanical hazards, and then we also look at electrical hazards, pneumatic hazards, chemical hazards, and environmental hazards, as well as fellow employee hazards and the self-constructed hazards. Y'all ever see the YouTube videos on, things that you shouldn't do? Where you see ladders that are posted up on top of backhoes and excavators, lower you into manholes and down into ditches and swing you around from one place to the other and all that. Anybody ever caught themselves doing some things that they thought, this ain't going to be good? I hate to say it, but we should be safer a bunch than that. But, we get wrapped up in the day-to-day work, and all of a sudden, what was typically going to be an easy deal, and one of the famous statements that I always hear, well, just with this one time, it's not going to take just this one time. And that one time might lead to, an accident and sometimes loss of life. So managing risk, we look at, like I said, risk awareness, risk tolerances, risk avoidance. How do we access the risk, and what is the risk to you? Are you responsible for your own safety as well as those of others in your area under your direction? As I was mentioning earlier on, those of you that's been in the business for an extensive period of time, or those of you that had other additional jobs maybe before utilities, has some considerations that you think about when you come to your job sites or you're going to and from your work sites and thinking about the degrees of safety. Realizing that you must drive your automobiles in an appropriate manner. You must rest when you have the opportunities to. I bet there's always been a group in there, that, if I could just almost guarantee, that work more hours than they have said that they should to as a result of such major incidents. Anybody remember the February 2021 storm, the Great Freeze? Many of you worked many countless hours without sleep. Many days and many nights. I know I did. So you're doing what you could do to make it all happen. When in these type of situations, are you always thinking at your best? Are you operating at your best? The answer is typically no, you're not, but you're doing the best you can. But in those instances, we can cause a severe accident, which could cause injuries, loss of life, loss of limbs, and I'd hate to be the one as a supervisor that have to tell their families that they couldn't come home tonight because of an accident they had on my job site. All right, now then, the responsibility of the organization. They must establish safe working conditions for all employees. How many of y'all have, raise your hands, how many of y'all have safety programs where y'all conduct safety meetings? Hope I see everybody in this classroom that has a safety program or a safety meeting to talk about some degree of safety. Some do it on a day-to-day basis every day, talk about degree of safety. Some do it weekly. Some just do it monthly, and some don't do it at all. I feel for those that don't do it at all. Establish and empower a safety officer. Have somebody out there watching, looking around, and making sure that things are always being run in accordance to your standard operating procedures for management's direct enforcement and requirements for safety. Establish realistic goals and set objectives for making sure that safety is being maintained and being met. Initiate disciplinary action when safety measures are not followed. So like, for instance, if you had on your part of your standard operating procedures for your safety program that says you wear steel-toe boots and you wear PPE for safety gloves and glasses and goggles and your hard hat, and then out there you find that your hard hat is being utilized to dip water out of a meter box, not because you needed it to wear to protect your head and your body parts. There's a safety officer should be sitting behind the scenes watching you and giving you that corrective action if need be. Evaluate the program regularly. Every program is not perfect by far. And as we have changes, rules, regulations, methods, and procedure, your safety program needs to be updated in accordance to that process, those procedures as well, okay? So we look at the operator's responsibilities. Operator's responsibility is to perform their jobs in a safe manner as established by the safety program. Under your responsibility, make sure you understand each aspect of the job that you do. And when you don't understand, please ask someone so that you can understand. One of the problems I've seen along the way is, well, I seen them do it that way, so I guess that's the way I ought to do it. Well, sometimes that's not always the best way, right? Do some own research. Remember, once again, the first person that you're going to be protecting is who? Yourself. So therefore, in this case, make sure you report all injuries, even if those that are nicky-nacky things that we call the school of hard knocks and bumps and bruises along the way. Can they turn into daggum outrageous things along the way? You don't want daggum to come up here and say, well, I'm not going to tell everybody everything. I understand we're going to have things that happen to us, and just the way it is. But what happens if you didn't report those injuries, and then it comes up after the time of workers' comp and all those employment insurance processes have passed, and then all of a sudden you have health issues as a result of that? Is your insurance and your health and your city and your municipality going to help take care of you at that point? They do the best they can, but at that time it becomes reduced significantly. So report those injuries. We also need to make sure to report all close misses. Got by with that. Well, wait a minute. Somebody needs to know about that so we don't do that again, for sure. Okay, actively participate in the safety program. Don't just say we got one, but be an active part in that. How many of you out there in the positions that you sat in, whether they be new employees or have been there a long time, volunteered to submit a program or talk about a piece of safety process that would help others become more aware in the learning process of becoming safe? Any of you volunteered to do those type things? Is to say, well, somebody needs to know about that, because if I don't tell it, maybe somebody else gets almost as injured just as I almost did. And if maybe in some cases that they just didn't almost, maybe it was an injury or an accident. Ignorance is a lack of training. Those folks that don't have any idea, never been there, done that, should be trained in a proper manner so that they understand what we do. Anybody ever heard of OJT? On the job training? They fill out your application, you're a warm, willing body, willing to work. Tomorrow you start with a crew and you're out there doing the job. Wait a minute. We didn't go through any protocol about talking about training or education or knowledge or coordination or anything. We just put you to work. Well, you'll learn somewhere along the way, right? Well, wait a minute. Will you learn, or will it be too late to learn? I can remember many times when I was younger in life, some of the older ones, they looked at it this way. Always the hard way. If I had to learn it that way, by God, he can too. Well, did it hurt you when it come across to there? Well, yeah, I broke toes, legs, fingers, nose, toes. So it's okay for me to do it the same thing? Well, if I did, you can. And I just don't think that's a good idea, folks. I think we need to prevent all those things that come along the way. And some of you that have been there, done that, need to pass on your knowledge and skills so that others do not get into that same mode. And don't get me wrong, folks, there's some of those of you that's pretty hard-headed. You're going to do it your way, you don't care what, but somewhere on the way you need to think about things and listen. My dad is a very knowledgeable individual. He says God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. That means you got to listen twice as much as you talk about things. So always listen, and hopefully that you understand more about what's taking place. In this case, the degree of safety. Indifference, not caring, poor work habits, lack of training or lack of caring, haste, taking dangerous shortcuts, temper, impatient, angry. Anybody get angry or impatient with the things that's going on out here in our world? Y'all are cool, calm, collected folks, right? Just easy going. I buy that most of the time, but I bet all the time that there's some things that irritate you, whether it be the government, whether it be the price of things, or the time plan that you are under to get it done. Horseplay, horsing around. Anybody know what horseplay is? Anybody? I got some out there that kind of shake head no out here just for a good reason, but horseplay's out there where y'all are joking around, kidding, cutting up, doing all kinds of unscrupulous things to each other just to get one's goat, is what I call it. And that typically always leads to accidents, and if you're not real careful, injury. I'll tell you one quick story, and then I'm going to move on. I can remember that I had a gentleman, he was an elderly gentleman, not that elderly compared to me now. He's about 65, and he could drive any piece of equipment that you could ever imagine, 18-wheelers, trucks, and all. And the guys found a bull snake in a meter box and thought, how well would it be nice to throw it in the cab of that work service truck that he had and scare him a little bit about it. Well, he was deathly scared of snakes, Big, stout man, but he was scared of snakes. So they throwed it in there in the wintertime. It was kind of fall of the year, wintry, and they put it in a floorboards pickup. And he jumped in there, service truck, turned the heater on. When the snake gets hot, what happens? The snake gets a little more active, and when he realized the snake crawls up his pants, he driving out of the yard, crashes into the gates. All of a sudden, everybody run over there, and he goes into a full-blown heart attack. As a result, almost ended his life as a result of this process. Horseplay, folks, can cause you lots of trouble. We don't have any time for it. We don't have any room for it on our job sites. Safety programs, one purpose, to prevent accidents. Accidents do not just happen. They are caused by someone. Negligence and carelessness are the main cause of most accidents that are out there today. Attitude. Of all accidents, 80% are related to the attitude or state of mind. They just don't happen. Poor attitude, poor performance. Hazardous states of mind, rushing, fatigue, frustration, complacency. Any of y'all ever rush through to get from point A to point B because you didn't have enough time to get it done? Or you ever had a boss that said, I don't care what it takes, let's get it done. Make it happen. Critical thinking errors, eyes not on task. Anybody in here operate with a cell phone? Anybody ever heard of texting while driving, YouTubing, Facebooking, Instagramming? Driving down the road 75, 80 miles an hour, and you're not paying a mind to what's going on in the highway, and all of a sudden everybody stops. Crash. Here we go. Everybody's in trouble. Mind not on task. I don't know about y'all, but some of you in key positions that you work in, you're loaded up with a lot of tasks and thought process. You may have 15 or 20 things running in your mind at the same time. And if one of them is not driving, guess what? That could lead to major problems as well. So loss of balance, trips, grips and traction, loss of concentration. You need to always think about the task at hand, not about the ball game or the coming of dance, or if you're going to walk or you can't dance. Accidents. An accident is an unplanned event. Common events have accidents. They are not planned. They occur suddenly. They provide no notice. People or property are damaged. Safety programs, we've talked about it a little bit already. They originate with management, followed by supervisors. I believe that the top level of management has good idealistic thought process support. It typically will trickle down to the lowest employee in the job process. Typically, it's followed by instructors, then by the employees, then management must make management safety everyone's job before production begins. Supervisors are responsible for the employees and their safety. The employee is responsible for their self and other fellow employees. A good safety program begins with a written document expressing an organization's need and acceptance of safe working environment for its employees. This should be in the form of a policy, rewards, as well as discipline set out to everyone to understand the program and its need for it. Any of you have a program that says so many days attended without accidents as a result of not having accidents for your department or your group or your crew? Sometimes cities and municipalities in Texas, I know certain ones that give awards, breakfasts or suppers or days off as a result of making sure that your work environment is maintained safe and that your crews do not have accidents. Something to help you. But when they don't provide the degree of protection, then disciplinary action must be provided as well also. Effective safety sessions teach or review basic safety concepts. Each employee employee involvement, stress safety as a way of life. Repetition is the mother of knowledge. Practice drill and practice for the preparation of always using the 5P principle. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. It should last about 10 minutes a session. We're talking about a tailgate session, folks. Hopefully all of you have tailgate sessions. That's a session out there on the job site talking about a degree of safety, precautionary, protectionary measures, whether it be a piece of equipment, driving safety, construction equipment, or et cetera. We should do that process regularly. We should record that process, who was in attendance, and keep the documentation on what was discussed. Discuss only the problem per session. Outline and demonstrate proper procedure. Relate topics to job operation. Allow discussion at the end of each meeting. And then follow up with accidents reports as soon as possible. Report near misses, I said. It is the supervisor's responsibility to fill out the accident report for the workers' compensation, the E1 report. Investigate the accidents, not the incident. Do not attempt to assign the blame, unless it's your job to determine how to prevent the accident so it does not become a part of the process to become another employee's accident. All right, so I think many of you have seen some of this continued on in different aspects along the way. So therefore, one of the things that we as operators for water treatment plant and distribution operators, as well as water and wastewater collection system operations, is the use of chemicals, right? How many of you are familiarized with your Hazardous Communication Act of 1985, which requires all employers to teach all employees about the hazards of the chemicals that you have on the job site? And then, as a result of World Health Organizations and their leaders adopting the globally harmonized system of safety, adopting a new series of SDSs instead of MSDSs, safety data sheets. The globally harmonized safety system also created 9 new warning signs and placards for degrees of hazards. It also incorporated multiple language formats on the warning labels that go on the containers that contain the chemicals. It required that we have a new rating system. Typically, everybody's always used to the 1 to 4 rating system for the diamond, that we have. The 1 is being the best and 4 is being the worst. But with the globally harmonized system of safety, it's 4 is the best and 1 is the worst. So that's been incorporated into what we are required to do nowadays. So we must be taking consideration when it comes to chemical safety. There are 5 basic groups of chemicals: acids, bases, gases, and salts. And then dry chemicals. I want to talk to you real quick, which I was asked to do on a topic I did yesterday for all of you, on gaseous chlorine injection systems. I wanted to reiterate some things I thought that should be taken today, and I was also asked to do so. One of the portions that got to be a little bit extended in my gaseous chlorine process is is we started talking about the safety use of gaseous and chlorine systems and the protection of those workers that are dealing with gaseous chlorine system, 150-pound cylinders, 1-ton containers, 90-ton railroad cars. You know, everybody has the understanding that we need to have, based upon the requirements under TCEQ, that we must have one OSHA-approved self-contained breathing apparatus and a bottle of 10% bomb ammonia upwind in the event of an emergency. That's directly incorporated into the requirements, almost word for word. And it also states in there, though, that the TCEQ does not approve the use of cartridge-type mask. So we had a conversation, everybody said, well, we've always used them. No problem, we've always used them. I didn't say that you couldn't use them. I said the TCEQ didn't approve them for your use. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to bring into that topic is I went ahead and done some research last night and looked into the Chlorine Institute that typically gives us our requirements that pass down through EPA, down to our TCEQ, and so on to our utilities. It says if the cartridge mask is absorbing 10% of chlorine gas is processed, it is no longer effective in not allowing chlorine to be introduced into the lungs of a human. So how long do you think 100% gaseous chlorine takes to incorporate into the activated carbon that most of those cartridge filters are made of to incorporate into your lungs, cause you a health issue? It's almost an instantaneous effect, folks. So I wanted to bring that out so that you do understand that's the reason why TCEQ does not approve of their use. It'll say you can't use them. It says it doesn't approve of their use because they typically will cause you difficulty of life and can cause you extensive over-chlorination of the lungs if you're not extremely careful and if you happen to have a gas chlorine cylinder leakage. So be cautious with that process. I want to bring that out. Any questions about that before I move on? Because I always like to ask questions about things like that that people don't understand about to a great degree. I see lots of workers that are out there that don't use a mask or don't use a SCBA whatsoever to change the chlorine cylinders and the containers out. I always said it's great to have those self-contained breathing apparatuses, that 10% bomb ammonia upwind in a case of emergency, but why not go ahead and put you one on that's ready to go full of breathable air anytime that you do workmanship with chlorine gas systems. Folks, I want each and every one of you to go home each and the end of every day safe and without the effects of injury, accident, in this case, chlorine gas into your lungs. I can speak from experience about the dangers of chlorine gas. I saved one of my workers' lives by not using the SCBA. Let me tell you what, the most miserable thing in life that you could ever imagine. It don't get over with one day, you don't get over with 2 days. It may take a year or more for you to get your lung capacity to some degree of adequacy back to where you had it. I'm gonna promise you it never gets back where it was. So gotta be careful, be very cautious there, folks. Dry chemical, we have all kinds of dry chemicals as well. We talked about one earlier, lime, soda ash, aluminum sulfate, those type of things. All those are powder. Activated carbon, potassium permanganate. You breathe any of those in your lungs, folks, you're going to have troubles. It's going to cause problems, so you got to be real careful. Always practice a high degree of protection. Always check in this case nowadays, the SDS, the safety data sheets before each use. All right, so you want to be very precautious about everything we do. Acids are extremely expensive in the water treatment facility. Neutralizing of acids is the only way to stop chemical action. Large amounts of acid in water will dilute and come in contact with the skin or that is spilled. So when we talk about the different acids, we talk about alkalis and talk about bases. You got to realize the acids are on the pH scale from 0 to 7, and alkalis or bases are on the pH scale of 7 to 14. Well, they say, which is worse, one or the other? Well, I'm going to tell you what, both are bad. It doesn't make any difference which side you want to pick. Both are bad. Strong bases are very dangerous to you. All right, the same precautions should be used under both circumstances. Bases must be neutralized with diluted acid. Strong acids can have an explosive strength. Anybody ever heard that in the laboratory for safety, always add the acid to the water, not the water to the acid? A good acronym that I was taught in chemistry is A&W root beer. acid to the water first, not the water to the acid. So be very careful. You add the water to the acid, you're going to get a very violent reaction that could splatter that all over you. Know the chemistry of what you're doing before you use those chemicals and those chemistries. We talked about some of the gases. A number of gases are used in our water industry. Some can be seen and others cannot. Some alert the operator by color, some are odorless, and some are colorless. Anybody ever been in a location where you had a limited entrance or limited exit location? The definition is that is what we call a confined space, folks. A confined space. Anytime that we have a confined space where your entrance is limited and your exit is even less limited, and there may be opportunities for hazardous gas. So a sewer line repair, a water line repair, where maybe gases are present, is that considered possible confined space? Sure could be. What about if any of you utilize those quick saws like the gentleman that was 23 years old I talked about starting off passed away with? Is it most of those are going to be a combustible gas? What is the combustible gas? Typically carbon monoxide. If you're in a low depressed water leak repair, sewage repair line hole doing the work, and you're running that particular unit, where is that carbon monoxide going to be going? Out in the environment or right around you? Typically, you're poisoning yourself with carbon monoxide gas if you're not adequately ventilating those areas with fresh air. Use fresh air blowers, folks. Put them to work. All right, most gases require the use of an SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus, which you heard me talk about with chlorine gas already. Salts, chemical salts are common in our water laboratory. Safety practices prevent salts and may require eye protection, respiratory protection, ventilation, proper clothing protection. Explosive hazards is possible due to the dust. Dry chemicals, powders, the particles that float in the air can create potentials for explosion in proper environments. One of them that usually I've seen cause lots of problems is powdered activated carbon. It's very light. It's very heat intensive, and if gathered into a location where it can be triggered by friction or a spark, it will ignite. And I've seen facilities, storage containers, and those type of things level to the ground because of combustible explosion when it comes to dry powders. Talk about dust particles that range from 1 micron to 100 microns. 1 micron equals 1/25,000th of an inch. Human eye can see 15 micron particles. If you can see the dust in the air, then the eye sees in the environment. There's more than the eye can see in the environment. Dust, respiratory, and explosion hazards are going to be present, folks. Midnight clay, no real hazard, but dusty. We talk about powder activated carbon, explosive hazard, respiratory hazard, fire hazard, most dangerous dry chemical you'll encounter. Most control the dust. You control a majority of the problem associated with dry chemicals in the workplace. Anybody use calcium hypochlorite for disinfection of new lines, storage tanks, repairs, and the such? You realize it is a strong oxidizer, and when reacted with hydrocarbons such as oils, fuels, and petroleum products, it can be very combustible. And typically, it provides its own oxygen and fuel source, so therefore it continues to burn until the fuel source or the oxygen that it produces is gone. So it's a real hot fire, folks. So potassium permanganate's another one that is very dangerous to mention already as well. The Right to Know law, the Hazard Communication Act of 1985. We got to be careful, know about Chapter 502, the Right to Know law. I've talked about that particular law and its in effect and its requirements to be met. Hopefully all of you have training on the Hazard Communication Act and as well as the globally harmonized system of safety. It goes through a high degree of protective measures when it comes to all of the different 16 sections that's required for chemical hazards response, respiratory, fire, emergency, toxicology, and much, much more. You've got to be very conscientious about those degrees of dangers. You need to have a chemical hazards chemical list. Under the Texas Tier 2 program, it is required for that list of chemicals to be held, and it must be updated annually to the most current list of data that you have available. Labels and SDS sheets are a must. I'll provide that we give each one of our safety sessions at least 3 or more of those safety data sheets that we present to our staff for the chemicals that we're going to be using in the job place. So every operator and every worker understands the dangers and the procedures associated in working around those chemicals. So, we talk about a lot of these outrageous chemicals. We talk about a lot of these different procedures and processes. When it gets down to it, folks, all in all, isn't everything we talked about designed to protect all of you? So isn't it to you to use it to your fullest, to understand, to learn, to educate, to gain perspective in keeping each and every one of you safe? It would be able to be outrageously if they allowed me to come back here next year and give another talk about safety or whatever the measure was, and I get to see all of your smiling faces. It's always sad to me when I come back and I said, "Oh, did you see so-and-so? I didn't see him last year. No, I seen him this year." "Oh, you didn't hear." That's where it always starts. "Oh, you didn't hear." An accident, something happened. Somebody was sick, hurt, or died as a result of an injury or accident. It's unbelievable. Y'all ever watch the news at night? How many accidents as a result of unscrupulous acts, whether it be alcoholism, drugs, whether it be use of improper cell phone actions, for those degrees of hazards. Got to be careful. So as we continue to talk about all of these facets, and I'm kind of zipping through things because my time kind of runs short, I'll be honest to tell you the truth, folks. I could talk about safety until the end of my time, however long that may be. And today, I'm sure it's getting short from my monitor here, letting me know that I'm not too far away probably for some things, and I'm going to squeeze a few things in. So a couple of things I want to squeeze in before we got too carried away discussing all that, because like I said, I can go with safety like crazy. And the project that they give me today and to talk to you about today covered 5 different areas of discussion that we had. Typically, those 5 areas cover a 20-hour utility safety training class that I provide for off and on throughout each month. So I'm going to try to hit the high spots as best I can, some of the critical factors, and I've done some of those already. A couple of more that I want to talk to you about in depth. One is trench safety. Okay, Texas leads the nation in trench safety incidents, cave-ins. If the ditch is 5 foot or deeper, you must shield, shore, bench, and protect the trench from the hazards of those that are going to be entering in the trench. I get calls off and on all the time. "Hey, did you hear about somebody on so-and-so in this town got killed the other day because a trench caved in on him?" "Yeah, I heard about it. Man, sad day." "Yeah, he had 2 young kids and a wife, I hear about some sad stories like that from time to time. Some of them I didn't know, some of them I did know real well. But we had to take extra precautionary measures. Make sure we use ladders. If it's dipped just 4 feet or deeper, make sure you use a proper ladder and make sure it's within 25 lateral feet of everyone within the trench. When we're dealing with confined spaces, those limited entrances, exits that may contain hazardous atmospheres, make sure you use those gas detection systems that make sure that they're on. Make sure you use the pass method for those that clip on you as well as the ones up above. Utilize attendants and supervisors up above. So therefore, if something was to go wrong, they can get you out with adequate extraction equipment, safety measures, and personnel on board to keep you safe. I hear about people across Texas, like I heard about in Wichita Falls about 3 or 4 years ago. They lost 3 workers, 2 city workers and a fire department person, because they decided that the safety was okay in a trench manhole way accessible point that they were going in, and the SCBAs were not needed. They figured there was no danger. 2 of those workers went down and died as a result. The fire department rescue worker went down, but he couldn't get him out of there. He made the choice to take his SCBA off, and when he went into there, he became overcome. They rescued him, got him to the hospital, and he died en route. 3 workers, folks. Make sure you keep things safe and extra precautions all the time. All right, now then, I can continue with safety like crazy, as much as you can imagine. All right, thank you for allowing me to be here today, and I appreciate you letting me talk about utility safety. Thanks, folks.